Mi'kmaq elder Albert Marshall brought forward the concept of two-eyed seeing in 2004 as a guiding principle to make science education more responsive to the needs of Mi'kmaq students as part of the Integrative Science program at Cape Breton University. Two-eyed seeing acknowledges Indigenous and Western knowledge systems as equally significant and diverse paradigms.
Edwaptimuk, or two-eyed seeing, obviously is very much inherent to the Mi'kmaq way of thinking. Because going back to the time when we were very much hunters and gatherers, that part of your brain has to be constantly activated to figure out what the messages are, where the challenges are. So by coining it as two-eyed seeing, in which it helps people to look at everything from another perspective. How can I constantly fine-tune my actions to ensure the actions that I am doing will not and cannot compromise the ecological integrity of the area? Since we are no longer hunters and gatherers, we now have to live on two worlds. And in this second world, we now have to become a wage earner. So two-eyed seeing then helps you and guides you to look into the past and to look at your actions and see how can I fine-tune my current actions so they not only will blend with the second road that I have to take, but rather fine-tune it. So the actions that will unfold will be very, very compatible with the roads that I have to take. And of course, again, two-eyed seeing allows you to look at everything from another perspective.
I lost my talk, said Rita Joe. For me, I was never given the option to know, to feel the flow of the words as they rolled off my tongue, giving me the lyrics of how our world was sung. My perspective was spun using the threads of both your world and theirs, left to cobble together a spirit from rags and tears, painfully aware that I was different. Through hard work and determination, I found my Indigenous articulation, a compilation of two ways, make up the sum of me.
So two-eyed seeing to me is a way of life. It's something that we can't just turn away from or turn off. It's something that we're born to do. And as Mi'kmaq people, I believe that all Mi'kmaq people have this ability. And because we live in a modern society, coming from an older society, you try to blend those two ways of thinking together to try to make sense of everything in your life, to try to balance everything out.
I'm really interested in the concept of two-eyed seeing, and I'm very happy that Murdine and Albert have articulated what that is, because I think all of us as Mi'kmaq people have felt that connection, and sometimes this idea that we are living in two different worlds. And I think for me, the idea of two-eyed seeing really came forward to me when I was in law school, because I really felt my Mi'kmaq culture coming up against the establishment of the law school, the Western culture. And so we're always living in both worlds.
You have two eyes, yet you only have one view. Your way is best, you would argue. Centuries of being in position to subdue those who would aspire. They say the sun never set on the British Empire, and because we recognize the hubris that defines your story, we have a sunrise and a sunset in our territory. With my heart and eyes, I have a completely different view. The consequence of my skin comes in an entirely different hue. Don't you see? Although you represent us, we think very differently than you because we see the world not through one set of eyes, but through two.
What's really great about Albert's concept of two-eyed seeing, he does a wonderful job at explaining it in a very simplistic way that you can see when he talks to people. They understand. They have a better appreciation for First Nations traditional knowledge. They see how they can apply it in their work and in their own life.
It really gave me a good repertoire of traditional knowledge, the way I was brought up, where the elders would teach me to observe, respect. I was able to weave the traditional knowledge of my ancestors, the knowledge that came from my lifestyle as a child, into the classroom where they brought in the modern Western scientific understandings. It allowed me, I guess, the ability to dance in both worlds. With the integrative science program there, the MSIT program brought me back into nature. I think that allowed me to develop a very strong sense of what two-eyed seeing is about without actually calling it two-eyed seeing.
And I remember the first time that I heard this concept explained to me by Clifford. It was so exciting to hear and to just realize that somebody actually was articulating this idea of looking at the world from the perspective of two different worldviews. And it's been a struggle that I've always had with the Academy to respect that people come to their studies with different perspectives.
That two-eyed seeing approach, first and foremost, is always from my Aboriginal perspective. So I wake up in the morning, I start thinking Mi'kmaq first, and in English, and then and they're going back and forth with each other, sometimes talking to each other. And then as I move throughout the day, then I plan my, let's say my meetings. And when I go to these meetings, I always think, like, if I'm working with the 4 communities I'm working on, let's say at IWK, for example, and we are basing our research on two-eyed seeing, I'm always conscious, first and foremost, of our cultural setting, our spiritual setting, how our people would think in moving forward with our research.
Thousands of years long, we were independent, proud, and strong. We belonged to this earth the way power belongs to money and privilege to birth. We put our communities first. But then came the fleets, filled with those you would ironically define today as come from away to invade every inch of our world, to break our spirit and pull the threads that would unfurl us, to catch the way you speak. But this is not a poem for the retelling of a one-sided history. Each of our worlds has its strengths. Yours is in power. It gets to eat its cake and define race. It has the ability to unapologetically take up space. If societal progress is linear, this society is top tier. Terra nullius, as though we were never here. It must be nice to be so confident.
I work with Indian residential school survivors here in Eskazoni, and I use two-eyed seeing with working with them because they don't want to do things in a non-native perspective or white perspective. Let's say counseling, or going to go see a psychologist, or do things what a white person would do. Instead, they like to do more holistic practice. A lot of ceremony, a lot of singing, a lot of dancing, a lot of just things like that. A more holistic approach to their healing in regards to residential school. And to me, bringing forward a two-eyed seeing approach to that is so much more rewarding, not just for myself, but for my clients that I work with.
I guess you can say we're the trailblazers in traditional natural resource management, using the two-eyed seeing approach, using traditional knowledge, using the modern Western scientific knowledge, and build a management plan for moose. A lot of our planning, we have to look 7 generations ahead to make sure that our decisions we make today is going to positively impact the next 7 generations. That's pretty well basically unheard of in government. Pretty well basically unheard of in industry and even learning institutions for that matter. So the Mi'kmaq way of looking at things, we see things in patterns. I look ahead 7 generations, but I also look back 7 generations as well. Is the work I'm doing today, is it going to make my ancestors proud 7 generations back?
Science as a discipline kind of demands of you that you take a very objective view of the world. You remove yourself from the world. But traditional knowledge tells us that we are not removed from the world. We are very much a part of the world. And it also says that the animals, the species we work with, they're not just subjects. They're spirits unto themselves that have their own rights, and we need to respect them.
One of the things that I'm really involved in is Truth and Reconciliation recommendations at Dalhousie. And one of the things that was discussed was this idea that education has the great potential to heal. And I think part of our healing process as people, as Mi'kmaq people who are survivors of residential school and generation, first and second generation survivors, third generation survivors, I think part of that healing process is finding worth in who we are as Mi'kmaq people. And looking at two-eyed seeing brings worth to who we are as Mi'kmaq people. Because for so long in education systems, like the way we think, the way we look, the way we act, what we do, our extended family responsibilities, all of those things that make up who we are as Mi'kmaq people has always been seen as less than and not important. And I think part of two-eyed seeing is recognizing the importance of our culture and who we are. It also means that we have to work and live within a Western modern world. When I look at teaching, for instance, or I think about learning, I think about education, like I said, being a healing process, because institutions have to change as well. Like the Truth and Reconciliation process is not just about, as I say, us Indians getting our act together. It's also about the institutions making space and us taking a space, if necessary, to bring in our culture and language and ways of knowing and Indigenous knowledge, whether it be science, math, history, English, the way we write, the way we look at the world.
Post-secondary degrees, accrediting our elders with the honorary to justify giving them a salary to sit alone in a university office. Your strength is that this society is ubiquitous, built on reified notions of tradition and rhetoric. Your notions of diversity are ad hoc in nature, an afterthought feature to an immovable structure. This isn't a conviction or an acquittal. Just the voice coming from an eye honed to be critical, who does not shy away from the opportunity to be political. If you push the two sides of the Venn diagram together, you'll get a circle.
But the best example I can share from that is that when we were taking our experiences with the children that are looking at pain through research, for example, and they're doing art pieces, and the art pieces that they came out with had so much resonance and spirituality behind it that a non-Aboriginal researcher would look at it as data. Data being gathered because it's art research. And in my mind right away I said, well, I can't look at it as data. This is not data. This is spiritual knowledge. This is traditional knowledge from our community. This is part of our consciousness from our people in our community that for some reason or another these children are producing on paper and showing to us how this process is. We don't have that true sense of interrelationship yet that I think two-eyed seeing will eventually get to. We're not there at all. Like, we're just, I think, exploring. That's few first stages, but we don't have it locked together. Aboriginal people have it locked together, two-eyed seeing, but it's not from the non-Aboriginal Western academia sense. They have to cross over to know and learn our part as well. So I think that's important.
And in my PhD, I'm focused on the health of a First Nation community that's been impacted by environmental contaminants that they've been subjected to from pulp mill for almost 50 years. And in order to regain the health of the community, I'm writing my thesis from the perspective of a Mi'kmaq worldview. And that in order to be healthy again, we have to develop the concepts that reflect the way that we look at the world and the way that we look at our land and air and water. And so I understand the two-eyed seeing concept. I embrace it. The concept that I use in my research is called Wejisqualliadamink, and it translates to understanding that we sprouted from the land.
We were never meant to be static like the rivers around us. We shift and change and remain dynamic. We bring to the table something that is able to change your worldview and show you what we are capable of. That a lot can come from a holistic concept of the earth. You are not a plague, nor we a curse or a problem in need of a solution. We've got to rid ourselves of the spiritual dissolution, the dilution of our treaties written to share this land. And we ask that you understand that we are the experts on what we need. Don't feed us your good intentions. Carefully laid apologies will not get you a historical exemption. We plan out our actions for the next 7 generations, and we ask that you do the same. Open your other set of eyes. Recognize the pain you have caused. Take a pause and start breathing. Welcome to the world of two-eyed seeing.
This has to be, from here on in, a co-learning journey between us Mi'kmaq and the newcomers. Because without that collective effort, I honestly believe that the work that has been done and that will be done wouldn't be as profound if one was doing it independently. But rather, when you do it collectively, the message then becomes clearer and clearer for everyone, newcomers as well as the native. That some of those sayings then come into actions when we used to inform our young people. Take the best from the newcomers, and you already have the best from who you are as a Mi'kmaq people. But then it reinforces it when a newcomer emerges and actually enters into this spirit of co-learning, in which the words, the actions that emerge from that initiative could be seen and felt as a collective effort or collective consciousness.